grasping the thin, almost translucent veil between that of fact and fiction, revealing mysteries of the past, folklore passed down from father to son, unsolved murders, and things that go bump in the night. You've entered Deceptive Reality.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Deceptive Reality podcast. I am the eerie Nick, and with me is the out-of-this-world Bert. Oh my God.
It's really me. Listen, it's Bert. It's really me. It's Bert. It's not an alien. Promise. I promise.
I'm expecting
Okay.
aliens everywhere now.
Oh my God. Woo! It's really me. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, my most sacred of days.
For me, it's Christmas. For Nick, it's Halloween.
Yeah,
it's fine.
That's right. Halloween's my Christmas.
I got to tell you, this one I'm super stoked for. This is our first special. This is the very first special, and it's on Halloween. It's on Nick's holiday.
That's right. And I feel like this is a tribute to Art Bell's Ghost to Ghost, because this is kind of what he did. We're not at the stage we can get live callers, but this is a good, actually, this might be better from what I hear.
It's funny because I, for the first time ever, listened to Art Bell's show, the, what was it called? Ghost to Ghost, last night for 2 hours while I was editing this narrative last night. And I was like, wow, that's what this all is. And there were so many people where I'm like, that ain't true.
Yeah, I know. He lets anyone talk. He lets anyone talk.
He did. It was funny. At the very beginning of the show, he was like, I just want everyone to know on my webpage, I put up a photo and there was these firemen. And in that photo, that fire is a doggone, what did he say? Native American on a war horse. And I'm like, God dang, I kind of want to see this myself. His webpage was not up anymore, though. It's kind of dead.
Yeah, that was probably a decade ago. Who knows?
Yeah. I think they said it was from 2002.
Oh, that's more than a decade ago.
That's a little more than a decade. That one was 2002.
He was doing it when we were baby ghosts.
He was. That's the crazy part. But it was super interesting. I had a blast with it. It was funny just listening to the people, because there's some people that called in and man, woo, baby.
Yeah, they're real wagadoodles.
Yeah, this here is Julie. I'm calling in from the great state of Oregon. And I'm like, oh, man. Oh, boy.
I saw this ghost after I slammed back 2 24 packs, and I know I saw what I saw.
That's about the truth. Biggest thing is we want to thank those that sent in stories. We definitely appreciate it. Today, we've got 7 stories.
Ooh.
Now, 3 of them, I'm going to preface it. We're going to put in the special category.
Special.
So we kind of cheated a little bit on 3 of them. And once we get there, you're going to understand. You're going to be like, I know what you did right there. So 4 of them, thank you so much for sending them in. We definitely appreciate it. The other 3, you'll get what I'm saying here in a little bit. But it was a blast. This podcast, I'm hoping and praying that we did justice to everyone who sent in a story. This is, Nick has a clue, a small clue.
You're getting the royal treatment. The royal treatment.
Well, this is special. If someone took the time to write a story and turn it in, I want them to feel like we did them justice.
Right.
So what we did was I added a soundtrack to every story and a full audible experience is how I'm going to put it. So I want you to be able to hear your story. We rewrote all the stories. FYI, we kept to the exact story.
Yep. The facts are all there. The facts are all there. All the facts
are there. But we had to add a little seasoning, a little salt on there.
Yeah, we had to spice it up a little.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So what I did was Nick graciously did 2 of them, and then I did 5 of them. So
I'm a slacker. Sorry, guys.
I had all the social media stuff. Nick is easy. So tonight it's going to go one of Nick's stories, one of mine, one of Nick's, one of mine, and then mine.
All the more for me to listen to and be surprised.
That's the best part. Nick did his audio for his. We dramatized. We all read our own. But for Nick's, he doesn't know what the sound effects sound like. So it's going to be fun.
I'm ready. I can't wait.
That's my job, Nick. It's my job to make you
next year we'll get like 40 submissions. Because after they hear this, we'll get 40 submissions, and the Halloween special will be all Halloween night long.
I know, right? Here's the thing. If after hearing this, someone's like, I'm not doing a story next year, I'm going to be devastated because these are so good.
Oh, it's going to be wild. I already know that I'm going to get the shivers. I can tell. I'm getting them now in advance. I'm borrowing the future shivers.
So what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to do a story, and then we're going to stop it. We're going to talk about it briefly. We're not going to dig too deep into it, but we might just tell a little bit, and then we're going to go to the next story. In narration alone and sound effects, we've got about another 31 minutes. It's about 31 minutes long. Speaking of which, Nick, do you want to start with the first story?
Yeah, let's do this.
Here we go.
The Dream Home Nightmare, submitted by Cheyenne, aka Nake. The Wilson family, Cheyenne, John, and their 2 children, had just moved into their new home in a quiet town in Nova Scotia. The old 2-story house nestled at the edge of a dense forest seemed like a dream come true for them. It was a fresh start, a chance to build new memories. Little did they know that the house came with its own secrets. The first night in their new house was filled with excitement and anticipation. The Wilsons explored every nook and cranny, marveling at the vintage decor and imagining the possibilities of life in this charming place. But as the clock struck 1 a.m., a chilling silence enveloped the house. Cheyenne was awoken from her sleep. At first she thought it was the remnants of a waking dream, but shortly after she heard it again. Then 3 more times.
John, wake up.
Waking John, they both went downstairs to find their photos had fallen off the mantel onto the soft carpet below.
How did all our photos fall?
This continued each night at 1 a.m., except on Sundays for some unknown reason. Nothing else would fall. Only the portraits that contained Cheyenne, her husband, and their 2 children. Even portraits depicting other family members and friends would not fall. Some nights the pictures would be arranged in odd patterns. It was becoming clear that something supernatural was taking place. It seemed almost like a threat. A few weeks in, the disturbances suddenly took a frightening turn. As the increasingly tired family was awoken again by the thuds and left their rooms to investigate, they were stopped in their tracks. From the darkness of the hallway, a flickering apparition materialized. It was a ghostly figure, pale and ethereal, with hollow eyes that seemed to search for something lost in the distant past. The Wilsons huddled together that night in their master bedroom, trembling with fear until daylight. The apparition, or apparitions, became a common occurrence and drifted through the walls, appearing in various rooms of the house, each time more frightening than the last. Cheyenne and John struggled to protect their children from the terrifying specters. The next night was the same, and the one after that, and the one after that. At precisely 1 a.m., the spirits would emerge, causing terror and dread. Days turned into weeks, and the Wilsons' fear grew more profound. They decided to contact local historians, hoping to learn about the history of their new home. What they discovered sent shivers down their spines. The house had a dark past. 20 years earlier, the previous occupants of the home, the Reynard family, had mysteriously died one by one. The entire family perished, and the circumstances surrounding their deaths had remained a riddle. The townsfolk had whispered about curses and hauntings ever since. The Wilsons couldn't bear to live in fear any longer, so one night they decided to confront the spirits. At 1 a.m., they waited in the living room, candles and incense burning, and called out to the apparitions. The spirits, as if acknowledging their plea, appeared more clearly than before. The lead ghost, a shadow of a woman who once lived in the house they presumed, reached out as if guiding them. The family followed her through the house until they reached a dusty, hidden room at the far end of the basement. The walls of the room were covered with old, damp, and crumbling wallpaper. The lead ghost pointed towards the walls, urging the family to investigate. As they began to peel away the wallpaper, they discovered the dark secret hidden beneath. Mold, thick and black, covered the walls. It was a toxic strain, the kind that could silently sleep into the air and slowly poison its victims. The Reynard family had succumbed to this silent killer. The realization struck the Wilsons like a bolt of lightning. The spirits weren't there to harm them. They were trying to save them. The ghosts had been trapped in this earthly plane, unable to rest until they warned someone about the danger lurking in the house. With the discovery of the deadly mold, the Wilsons took immediate action. They hired professionals to remove it and made the house safe to live in once again. As the mold was eliminated, the vengeful, or thought to be vengeful, apparitions gradually faded, leaving a sense of peace in their wake. The Wilsons, grateful for the intervention of the spirits, decided to honor the memory of the Reynard family. They turned the basement room into a memorial, adorned with pictures and keepsakes, dedicating it to the brave souls who saved them from a silent death. With the ghosts at rest, the Wilsons continued to make their new house a home filled with laughter, love, and gratitude for the Reynard family's intervention in their lives. The home was no longer haunted for them, but was a place where they had found not only a new beginning, but also a profound connection to the past.
That was amazing.
That's a fun story.
Yeah, I think Cheyenne, I think you're gonna really like that one. By the way, their last name is not what it is in the story, but I needed one to fit the story.
Mhm.
So don't go looking for them. Don't go.
Hey, it
looking for 'em.
works. Listen, at the end of the day, some of these stories, they've got some small little changes, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Totally fine. But the story in and of itself was a cool story. It's so awesome because so many times we hear the stories where the ghost is quote unquote the bad guy, right?
Right.
And this
right.
one, the ghost was technically trying to save the family. Now, was it because they died from the mold?
That is how it was presented to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they moved on because they had prevented it from happening again. That's what she told me. Oh, another. Before we go too far into this,
Mm-hmm.
can I ask where you got that voice?
That's 11 Labs.
Is it? Because the
Mhm.
first one, the first part of time it played, that sounded a lot like Cheyenne. I thought, oh my God. But then when the second part played, I was like, okay, that's not the voice, but it's a good voice.
I had to slow it down a little bit for the second part because no
Yeah.
matter how many times I did with 11 Labs, it just was not. The one thing about 11 Labs is their voices are freaking wow. They're spooky good. You're going to hear 3 more tonight that has those kind of voices, all of them different. They have thousands of different voices you can choose from. So
Do you use it on your podcast too, or?
yes.
Nice.
Yeah. I use it sparingly on mine because usually a lot of mine is a little bit different narrative and there's not necessarily a lot of talking, but I'm going to try to incorporate a little bit more into mine. The sound effects, this is the first podcast where I've like that one alone had 12 or 13 different sounds built in, not including the voices.
I was trying to pick them out. It was really good. I really
the crazy
enjoyed
part
that.
is the subtle ones are the ones that you don't even acknowledge. Like there was a car passing more than one car. That's actually not the same car that's passing. But I don't think most people, when they're listening to it, will be like, is that a car passing? It's just ambiance.
You did such a good job on that it made me sound less lame. I was like, oh
Shut
yeah,
up,
I kind
Nick.
of sound good with all this stuff going on. All this stuff
Oh,
hiding
Nick.
my my flaws. Like, this is great.
I will say it adds something to the stories. I like it so
It does.
much.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're in the story, in my opinion.
We could just cut ourselves out and release it
I
on
know.
audiobook form.
This is our story.
Yeah. We just say
We'd
hi
probably
and then
get-
play stories.
We'd probably get less hate on some stuff. Sometimes,
Oh,
man,
maybe.
some people's good night. They're like, "Who's these two idiots? Go back to the narration."
Oh, that's what I'd be saying. So I can't fault them, right?
But I tell you, Cheyenne, thank you so much for that story. That was a great
Yeah,
story.
she's gonna love that.
I love that story. It was I liked the fact that it was a nice, quote
Yeah.
unquote, spirits.
Let me ask you something, your thoughts on this, because this is kind of, I wondered about this myself. And she didn't have any idea why. But why were they so freaking scary until they started to catch, till they started to talk back to them?
Unfortunately, my brain doesn't shut off. And I've researched so many different ones of these accounts so far.
Right.
I'm starting to have a hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that we manifest whatever these things are.
So they're reflections of our feelings about it.
Correct. I've got a lot of theories on that too, though. Like one of the things eventually I'd like to bring to our podcast is like people that can heal people by touch. I'm wondering again if that's a manifestation. I don't know.
I'm going to just say a song title, so I'm not saying anything else other than this. But isn't there a song called Sexual Healing?
There is.
Yeah. Oh,
Don't copyright me.
Now. Yeah.
But yeah, this is what I've kind of have been thinking here lately. I believe that when a spirit or a ghost manifests, we somehow, because I wonder to myself, how can someone who doesn't believe in this go into a haunted location as a skeptic and never, ever have an experience? And I think that goes back to, if their ambition is nothing's there, they're not going to manifest anything.
Right.
Versus people that are
makes
like
sense to
big time
me.
believers.
Or,
And I don't understand if it's like energy or what it is, but man.
Maybe you got to be open to it to receive it, or maybe your energy amplifies what's going on there to a noticeable level.
And that's the thing. I had someone the other day, they was like, you say ghost and you say spirit and you say shadow person. Isn't it all the same thing? It's like, no, not at all. They're very different things. Ghosts are supposed to be manifestations or a manifestation. What'd you say?
Manifestation?
Manifestations. That's it.
Right.
I think I was combining two completely different words together. But of someone who lived before.
Right.
And I believe a spirit is something that never existed as a human, but it can take the form of a human. So it's like an entity of sorts.
That word spooks me out all the time.
Entity?
Entity. Yeah.
Kind of a scary word.
That's a scary word.
And one that I want to do on my podcast, I talked about it actually in the episode before this one comes out. I want to do an episode on shadow people.
Okay.
Or the Fedora Man is like a world, like everyone across the world has seen, knows, they basically have a story about the Fedora Man, which is interesting to me. I don't know. But that was a great story. Thanks so much for contributing.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure Nick was probably like, give me your story. But listen, you still did it, and I appreciate that.
That'll teach you not to walk down alleys. Someone will rob you for stories.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of robbing, do you want to hear the next one, Nick?
I sure do.
This is one that was submitted to our Reddit. This person actually gave us two stories. So the first two for me is going to be from the same person. The Haunting Echoes of an Empty House, from Geo.
It was the kind of stormy night that sends shivers down your spine, even when you're safely indoors. The year was 2015, and my family had decided to head out for dinner. I was stoked. The house all to myself meant one thing: an uninterrupted night of gaming. No parents, no sister, just me and my virtual world with my pals. At first, all was going well. I was about an hour into my gaming session when my stomach decided to join the game. The grumbling grew louder than the storm outside. I headed to the kitchen to grab a snack, but what I found was far from ordinary. Every light in the kitchen was on, illuminating the room in an almost eerie glow. The window above the sink? Wide open. My mom is the kind of person who triple checks everything before leaving. Lights off, windows closed. Always. So this was just weird. I tried to brush it off, telling myself she must have been in a hurry. But a strange feeling settled over me. But I went back upstairs, returned to my game, trying to lose myself in the virtual world. Just as I was getting back into the zone, a loud bang shattered the silence.
What was that?
The noise was so intense that it seemed to shake the very foundations of the house. My first thought, they must be back, and my sister in her typical style slamming the door. So down the stairs I went, already rehearsing my "Hey, welcome back." As I reached the bottom step, I froze. The house was empty. The only thing out of place was a ceramic shard laying on the floor, a piece from one of our wall plates. These plates were rock solid, hung up for years, and they hadn't gone anywhere, or so I thought. As I was investigating how the shard got there, then came a sound. A soft scraping noise coming from the cupboards. My heart was pounding as I opened it. And then I saw enough that would turn anybody's stomach. Our neatly stacked espresso cups were now a heap of shattered ceramics, all tumbled over as if pushed by some invisible hand. I just stood there, my heart racing. What just happened? Everything was defying logic. Was this some kind of bad prank? Or something far more sinister? From that night on, something changed. Whenever I was alone in that house, the air just felt thicker, the silence heavier. It was as if the walls themselves was watching me, whispering secrets that I couldn't hear. And so I'm left to wonder, was it just a strange set of coincidences that unfolded that stormy night? Or was there an unseen presence lurking in the shadows, making sure that I knew I was never truly alone?
Ooh, I got the chills
Geo.
there. Yeah. Geo, man, that creeped me out.
That's the point, Nick. It's Halloween.
I know. Spooky. I love it. 10 out
It's
of
so
10,
good.
Geo.
That was a great
I
story.
hope you're alive. I hope you're okay.
He is, because he got one more story that happened after. Now, after that one, I can't tell you. I don't know.
After that, we don't know. After that, he posted it on Reddit right away, and then it got him.
He did. You know, it's funny because I'm not sure, because I know he created a secondary account to send this in. That just means you don't trust me, Geo, but that's fine.
Oh.
Clearly, I believe I've probably interacted with him, probably on Our Ghosts, which I've been a pretty big contributor over there. Like I try to contribute like one thing a day. So I interact with a decent amount of people just in and out of that community. So, but I think obviously he's listened to the podcast. And he's like, listen, I got two stories. I don't know if you'd like to use one or either one of them. Like, dude, if you submit a story, we're going to use both of them if that's okay with you.
Yeah, heck yeah. We want this stuff.
Shoot. We love this kind of stories. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people's like, man, I don't want to give my story because it's lame. It's lame because you think it's lame. It doesn't mean that anyone else like that. If that experience happened to somebody else in their world, that's a biggie.
Yeah. I mean, listening to that, I was like, oh crap, what's going to happen, man?
Correct.
And espresso
Correct.
cups ain't cheap. Like you can't
Especially
have those
6 with
those
saucers.
ghosts knocking them over. I don't like that.
You know, but it
like
made
that.
me think back because I was like Gio to a degree when I was younger. I couldn't wait for everyone to vanish from my house because I was,
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna do gaming by myself. Leave me alone so I can get this gaming on.
Yeah, we can all relate to that, I guess.
Oh yeah, 1000%. But then I sat back
Do
and
you
was
still
like,
feel
man,
that way?
oh, I mean,
You're kind of like, I want the house to myself. I love my family, but I want the house to myself.
some
You ever
days
feel
they
that?
probably wish that about me. I wish you would go somewhere.
Oh, that's natural, I guess.
Oh man. But no, that was a great story. When I read it, because I read it as soon as he sent it to me on Reddit. See what I did right there?
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
that's got some potential because again,
Yeah.
I can go into the mindset of being in that position and what would have happened
Mhm.
if this happened to me. The sound effects and the music, I think that just adds to it.
Yeah, that did like legit give me shivers. And also the part with the heartbeat, my heart was like, going,
That's a weird thing. And you know what? I did not add the 9 hertz to any of this so far. Not guaranteeing
yeah?
I'm not once it gets out into
Mm.
podcast land.
Sneaky.
But yeah, but Nick, you're experiencing it without that. But I think when you hear a heartbeat do that, you're naturally more accelerated.
Yeah,
So-
I think you like almost try to get in tune with it or something like that. But
That's what I think happens.
I gotta tell you, I'm easily influenced by that kind of thing. I see a commercial, they're like, buy this toothpaste, I'm out to buy it. Like-
Nick's got like 5 different things of toothpaste.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, I got
awesome.
20 kinds of mustard in the fridge, 12 toothpaste, all this
That's
stuff.
hilarious.
But no, I'm loving this. I am loving this. Also, one last observation I've got is have you noticed how drastically different our voices get when we do narration versus when we're actually talking?
That's why on my podcast, I got to record on 2 separate days. I can't do them on the same day. My
Yeah.
brain will not do both unless I've got a long
Right.
period. The one that's coming out this Wednesday, I did the same day, but I did 3 hours apart. As dumb as that sounds, like you should be able to talk like
Yeah.
this and then talk normal, but my brain just doesn't.
Well,
Once I get
it's a
into a
skill.
certain voice, it's like a character is what it is.
Yeah.
You're basically, it's like, what was it I was watching the other day? It was Heath Ledger in The Joker. One of the guy that was Two-Face in the movie when he's sitting in the hospital, laying in the
Yeah.
hospital, that scene, they did the scene before that and the Joker wasn't in that entire scene, but they recorded over the course of one day.
Right.
Well, the Joker was there in full makeup. So Heath Ledger was there in full makeup. And he looked at the director at one point and he goes, what scene are we doing with Heath today? And he goes, you mean the Joker? And he goes, okay, Heath the Joker. When
Right.
are we doing a scene with him today? And he goes, no. So he spent all that time, put whatever it was, 4 hours, 6 hours having the makeup put on just so they could see him in character so they could get into the mindset.
I love that.
It's so good.
Heck, if I
It's
was
so
the
good.
Joker, I'd always be the Joker. They don't ever want to let me play the Joker because I'll just never stop.
Always be yourself unless you can be the Joker.
That's right. That reminds me a few years ago where my tattoo artist did the pinhead makeup for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I cried when I took it off. I wanted to stay that way so bad.
Nick's
Thank
like,
you,
if I could
Danielle,
sleep
by the
like
way.
this. No doubt. That's crazy. That
Oh,
was
my
so
friends'
good, though.
kids were terrified.
Well, yeah, I would have been terrified as an adult, Nick. What are you talking about?
Somewhere
Good
out
God,
there, somewhere out there on the internet is a artistically accurate pinhead singing the Gummy Bear song. Search it on YouTube. You might find it.
Oh, man. That's just scary. Nick, we've got one more of yours left.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you want to wait to say who it's from because you do at the beginning of the narration.
Yep.
Dead Center of Town, Ghosts and Treasures. Submitted by Crystal. While this story doesn't belong to Crystal, her family worked for the Vanguard, a well-respected newspaper in Canada, and was lucky enough to witness this story and its history being discovered. Nestled on Main Street in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, you'll discover a unique parcel of land known as Frost Park. This centrally located park offers a serene escape for relaxation, photography enthusiasts, outdoor events, and perhaps even an encounter with the park's resident spirits. Now you might be wondering, why on earth would a public park be associated with ghostly apparitions? Well, the answer lies in its intriguing history. Before 1860, Frost Park served a different purpose. It was the primary burial ground for the early settlers of Yarmouth. In 1859, town officials came to a sobering realization. With Yarmouth's population steadily growing, continuing to use the site for burials posed health and logistical concerns. As the park transformed into the heart of town life, it was no longer suitable for laying the departed to rest. The year 1861 marked a significant shift when Yarmouth Mountain Cemetery was established as the new burial site, a replacement for Frost Park. During this transition, some of the deceased were relocated to the mountain cemetery to make way for progress. A water fountain, symbolic of the park's transformation, was installed on the reclaimed land. However, not all of the park's former occupants found their way to the new cemetery, leaving remnants of their history behind. The exact number of unmarked graves in Frost Park remains unknown. Veiled in mystery, among the quiet surroundings, a few weathered headstones still stand, some even embedded in growing trees, bearing witness to those who were once interred in this historical cemetery. It is said that of those forgotten dead, one still has business that needs doing. A ghostly man in old-fashioned attire wanders the park seeking help in uncovering his lost treasure. Most run when approached by the specter, though we have one famous story of one who didn't. Tom Surratt was a man known throughout the small, close-knit community of Yarmouth as someone who always had a story to tell. He was regarded as one of the most superstitious individuals in town, and his tales of encounters with the supernatural were often met with skepticism and raised eyebrows. However, there was one story that even the staunchest non-believers couldn't easily dismiss. It all began in Frost Park, a peaceful enclave nestled amidst the lush trees of Yarmouth. Tom had always been drawn to the park, feeling a connection to the spirits that seemed to linger beneath the surface. He'd stroll through the park, his eyes scanning the area as he attempted to decipher the messages he believed were hidden in the rustling leaves and gentle winds. But it was on several chilly evenings in the park that he claimed to have had the most unusual encounters. One crisp autumn night, as Tom walked the winding paths, he saw a figure materialize before him. It was a stout and very distinguished-looking man, around 70 years of age. He was clad in heavy coats with a smaller one peeking from underneath. A brown soft hat adorned his head, and the distinct aroma of pipe clung to the air around him. Tom, though trembling with both fear and curiosity, managed to speak. The ghostly figure inquired if he was familiar with the Tuscan Islands, to which Tom nodded. The ghost then revealed that a secret that sent shivers down Tom's spine. There, in the remote reaches of Eastern Bar Island, was a treasure worth almost $1 million at the time, buried deep beneath the earth. The ghost implored Tom for assistance in uncovering his hidden wealth. Tom was intrigued by the prospect of such a fortune. He agreed to help, armed with a newfound purpose. Over several visits, he followed the ghost's cryptic directions, trekking through the dense, eerie woods of the Tuscan Islands. Yet, each time Tom set foot on the Eastern Bar Island, strange and inexplicable events unfolded. Young trees, seemingly healthy, would topple in front of him as if pushed by invisible hands. His supplies and food would mysteriously vanish, leaving him bewildered and hungry on the barren island. The most unsettling of all was the presence of a white and red dog, which seemed to have no means of reaching the remote location. With these setbacks and dangers, Tom wondered, did the spirit want the treasure found, or was this an elaborate trap? On one particular trip, an uncanny sight greeted Tom and his son. A massive flock of 300 crows circled a single, gnarled tree. As they approached the tree, the birds' cawing grew louder and more frantic. Tom and his son, determined to unearth the treasure, tried to shove a long pole down a hole at the base of the tree, but it seemed bottomless, as if defying the laws of nature itself. Local newspapers couldn't resist the bizarre tale that had captured the town's imagination. Reports detailed the extraordinary occurrences surrounding Tom's treasure hunting escapades, of which there were many more, leaving readers both puzzled and intrigued. They speculated on the supernatural forces at play, wondering if the ghostly figure in Frost Park had ulterior motives. Did he want another unmarked grave like his as vengeance? Tom remained undeterred by the enigmatic events on Eastern Bar Island. He believed that the treasure was not only material wealth, but also the unraveling of a mystery, a connection between the living and the dead. He planned trip after trip, determined to unveil the secrets hidden on that desolate island, haunted by the ghostly figure's enduring plea for help. The story of Tom's ongoing quest was never told. Did he find the treasure and remain quiet ever since? It is odd that the ghost decided not to seek help after this and only shows up now in the occasional photograph.
And there was a photograph that I included. Did you get a chance to see that?
No, I didn't know if that was by mistake or not. There was a photo? That was the photo?
Yep. Yep. Someone
Good.
caught a clip of the guy standing behind a bush. And
That
you may
is
not know a
crazy.
ton about Canadians, but we don't dress that way anymore.
That's a little
Just in
different.
case you think it's just a fella.
Well, you never know. Listen, hey, it's 2023. People can dress however they want to dress, Nick.
That is true. And you can dance if you want to. You know that song, don't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this story is thank you, Crystal, for telling it, because this is one from someone who is related to someone who worked for the newspaper. But I've heard a lot of versions of this, some longer, some shorter. But it's a pretty
Mhm.
famous story.
It's a cool story. I liked it. It gave me what was that guy's name? The you and I have talked about him before. He used to do all the TV shows. Josh Gates.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It reminds me of him because he's always out trying to explore. And this clearly in this case, they was trying to find a treasure. That sounds like Josh Gates. If I didn't know any better, I'd be like, this is a Josh Gates story.
From all the stories I've heard, and there's a ghost walk here that does this every year. And
Mhm.
I've listened to this like 15 times, at least from them. I claim he found the treasure. Because
You think so?
Yeah. And here's a good reason why. In Canada, if you find a treasure, you better keep the information to yourself, because the government will take it from you if you let them know about it, because of its
Makes
historic
sense.
importance. So if you find
Can't
a
say I
treasure,
blame
you
them
don't
then.
tell anyone.
Well, if we're being a buck, I probably wouldn't tell no one here in the States either. So
Okay.
don't feel bad.
Do you
Listen,
have rules about that?
I think it depends on what the land is. So if somebody
Oh,
drops
okay.
some stuff on some land, I know in your case, they got to give it to the government,
Yeah.
and the government determines if you can have part of it back, right?
Yeah. It's like a
But you never
small
get the full thing
percentage.
back.
No, it's a very small percentage that you get back.
Yeah.
If anything, if it's all historical value, they'll give you equivalent value to it, because you can't, as a private citizen, you can't have historical items.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, not moving to Canada, folks.
No, not if you're going to find a
Canadian land, as I
treasure.
put it. Good night. If we look for treasure, it's not going to be in Canada. Wait a second. Where's Oak Island at?
Oh, that's also in Nova Scotia. Yeah, I've been there a number of times, and I can't tell you if I had been on the island, because I'm not allowed to be on there. So I can't talk about that.
Nick's like, I was never there.
Wink, wink, wink.
Well, it's the thing that I find interesting about that is, why would they televise this thing? Because if they find something, the government's just going to take it from them.
Right. Well, wait, aren't they mostly American?
Are they? But
I
it's
think the
happening
major-
in Canada.
Yeah, I think we'd give it to you guys. We don't
Oh.
want to tick you off.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, well, it's we're afraid, man. We're afraid.
That's what it is, man. Trudeau's like, listen, they got more stuff than us. We need
Yeah,
them.
yeah. We can't fight these guys. We got to keep Big Brother
For
happy.
sure. So how well versed was Crystal with this story? Obviously, I'm assuming it was passed down, right, to her.
Well, this isn't that old.
Oh, it's
This story
relatively recent.
Yeah, this is like the 70s. The Tom part happened.
Oh, still, I consider that old, Nick. I'm
okay.
old. That makes this old.
I guess I'm not that old. So, it wasn't like an inherited story, but it was like not her story, but a relative of hers worked for the newspaper who investigated it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's her connection to it.
Crystal's like a break-in reporter then. If you think about it,
Yeah.
she's breaking the news, Nick.
Or leaking the source.
She could be leaking the source.
Yeah, but there's a lot of additional information I've heard in some, but I don't know if it's true because you know how people are with embellishing these things.
Well, of course. Trust and believe. Heck, half of mine is embellished.
I believe in Crystal. I believe in you, Crystal.
Crystal's believable sort. Listen,
Yeah.
Crystal, you are A-OK in the bird
Dang
book.
right. Dang right. And we are thankful. Thank you for the story. All joking aside.
Yes, thank you so much. I enjoyed piecing that one together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of little small things that I don't think most people would catch in that, which is when I hear it, there's twice in that where I go, oh, I forgot I added that.
just to bring it on the table, I had an awful time recording that for some reason. You'll hear me stutter a couple times, and I don't know why. I don't think I did very much in the first story, but I stuttered the heck out of this one, and I apologize for that.
Sometimes it's tongue twisters, man. Sometimes certain words together. I put a blooper reel, I think, on episode 5 of one of my podcasts because I struggled.
Oh, yeah.
The entire podcast. So I had so many struggles. I put it at the end just for people to laugh. And I can't tell you how many people I got that listened to it. And they're like, dude, I replayed the end because listening to you get frustrated and then just talking to yourself with like pep talks is what made that entire podcast. I'm like, you know how much info I had in that thing?
There's bound to be some bloopers. There's got to be.
Trust me, every episode, whether I put it at the end or not, there are bloopers. A lot of times I'll mess up or I'll make a word up that never existed. And then I'll be like, I don't think that's a word. And then you'll just hear me typing away, trying to figure out if it is a word or not. So there's some weird cuts sometimes. It's just me like, did I make that word up? Kind of like when y'all accuse me of making a word up. Just like that.
Even though you're not.
Exactly. Most of the time in my podcast, I am, though.
I'll tell you what, it's kind of like when I cook things and have people over for supper, or when I post it on Instagram, everyone's like, everything you cook is so amazing. And I'm like, I don't publicize my failures. Like, you don't know how many things I've thrown away to get to this point. Like, I don't take a picture of my burnt stew or, deflated bread. Like, I don't post that stuff. That stuff goes in the trash. I only take the peak performance. I'm curating my image.
Also. Well, that's the thing. We got to put out the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
Heck, that's how we get married. Hello.
That's right.
Nick, this next one is another Geo one.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I said that earlier, and I had to say it again because clearly you're going to be like, we already knew it was Geo. Yeah. This one was years later.
Okay. Oh, he got to live years after that then, so he was okay for a while.
A few years. So he definitely lived a few years.
Okay.
Are you ready to hear the next one?
I am. Let's hear the saga of Geo.
Let's go.
The Unseen Shiftmate from Geo. It was a winter Saturday night, and the clock had just struck 10 p.m. The weekend shift had just begun, and I was the overnight security guard at a sprawling pharmaceutical complex. This building was an absolute labyrinth. It had everything from offices, warehouses, labs, and machinery rooms that could give anyone the creeps. I was used to the routine. My job required me to patrol every nook and cranny of the building, scanning barcodes on walls to prove that I'd been everywhere. Oh, and the building made sounds, lots of them. The hum of machines, the clanking of pipes. It was like the building itself was alive, but I had grown accustomed to its eerie symphony. The night had started as any other. By 11:10 p.m., the janitor was gone, the last person to leave as confirmed by the key card logs. Then it was just me and the empty building. I made my first round, noting nothing unusual. Back at the security desk, I switched to my regular downtime activities, Netflix, food, and a quick smoke break. I'd returned to my desk and got lost in a YouTube video when I heard it. A door creaking closed, slow and deliberate. Now I've heard doors in the building close before. It was just different. It wasn't a draft or an automatic latch. It sounded intentional, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was just the wind or some forgotten door finally settling into place. And then it got stranger. I heard the distinctive sound of a filing cabinet drawer being opened, followed by the sounds of rustling papers and the faint sound of someone whistling a tune. Imagine someone casually going through your files, almost like they're humming some sort of a tune to themselves. Now add in the soft shuffle of footsteps and what sounded like bristles of an old broom sweeping across the floor. I know this is going to sound weird, but I forgot I was even at work. I was so engrossed in my break activities that I almost thought these sounds were, well, normal, like someone from the cleaning crew was just doing their job. It wasn't until 5 a.m. when a movement alert popped up on my monitor, signaling, of course, the janitor's early Sunday arrival. But that's when it hit me. I was supposed to be alone all night. I asked him outright.
Did any of your guys come in last night? Or maybe even sleep here?
His answer turned my blood cold.
No one came in yesterday. That's why I'm here now.
I hurried and checked the key code logs and the surveillance footage. Nothing. Not a single entry or exit recorded except my own rounds. No movement captured on camera either. I gathered all my courage, went to the janitor's room myself. What I found sent chills right down my spine. The door was wide open. Every single drawer of the filing cabinet was pulled out, but no one was there. Nothing to explain the whistling, the footsteps, or any of the other sounds I heard. Was it my imagination? Was I maybe just lost in my screen and misheard the sounds of an empty building? No, these sounds were different. They were specific, and they were intentional. But now I wonder, was it just the tricks of a lonely mind, or was something else wandering these echoing halls, filling the empty spaces with sounds only I was meant to hear?
Ooh. Is there a part 3 from Geo? Because I feel like something's coming.
Gio, you holding out? Give us there's always got to be a sequel. There can't just be 2.
What's happening? What's happening?
They're following you. And Gio, put your phone down at work, bro.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It's weird what you were listening to, though. I like that. Oh, that cracked me up. I lost it.
Oh, man. That was so good. That was so good. I'm sorry, Gio. I had to.
I'm extra thankful for Gio. Is like, I know that's our only 2, but I feel like it was heading somewhere and he just never got to write it out. R.I.P. Gio.
Oh, man. Poor Gio.
He's gone, but not forgotten. Let's dedicate this episode
to Gio.
To the memory of Gio.
To the memory of Gio. May he live in another realm for a long time.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, that one, this was of all of them. If you think about it, tonight we've had a house story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We followed that up with another house story, but from a younger person's perspective.
Yeah.
Then we went to a park story.
Like an adventure kind of
thing.
Yeah.
And then we've been to work. We've basically lived our life.
That's right.
We're home,
going through the whole cycle.
Went to the park, went back home, went to work. It's crazy.
I really liked, I don't know why I'm singling this part out, but I really like the scanning of the barcodes. That really got me into it. Because that conveyed a feeling of travel.
Yeah.
Like,
my goal in that was I wasn't going to explain until we was into the narrative almost 40 minutes or 40 seconds.
Right.
Why you're hearing the barcodes. So in my thought process, so I stole a lot of my ideas and concepts from an old show I used to watch, which was, or it wasn't a show, it was a show, but they had a radio show called the Twilight Zone Radio Shows. So it was the Twilight Zone stories, but just in radio format. It was just audible.
Okay.
But I could listen to that. And a lot of times I'd be like, why am I hearing this? And then like partway through, I'm like, that's why I'm hearing that. So almost all of our narration is going to start before anyone talks. So if you listen to go back and listen, like in the first Geo story, you hear the parents pulling off at the very beginning. And by the time you figure out the parents is gone, you've probably already forgotten that part, but it was in the story. So it's the little things.
You're gaming us.
It's the little things. I'm building the story in the background and then we're telling the story.
Bert, this is straight up manipulation you're doing.
Wait till these sad suckers get the 19 hertz wave on them. You're not even getting that.
Over.
Nick.
It's over.
But that was a fun story. I really enjoyed both your stories, Gio. I appreciate them so much. They were an absolute blast to do this with. Not only that, but it conveys the fact that this goes back to what we were saying earlier. I think you can manifest some of these things. If it's there, I think we do something to manifest. I'm not sure what it is, but he had that experience at home. He had that experience at work.
Well, here's another angle on it. He, like another person in that position, might have never thought afterwards, oh, I was supposed to be alone. So that person might have said, well, I didn't experience anything. Well, you did, but you weren't paying attention.
Didn't even know.
Right.
Didn't even know. But yeah, that was a blast. I enjoyed that story a lot. The next one is what I'm going to call a surprise entrant into the stories.
You're not just going to play a loud sound and scare me, are you?
Yes.
Oh, geez.
Are you ready to hear the next one, Nick?
I'm ready. Let me put my fingers in my ears here. Let's do it.
Here we go.
The Haunting of Two Homes from Bert's Mom. The first home my husband and I bought was a relic, a building with history built in the 1800s. For several years, it was just our cozy little vintage home. Then, unexplainable things started to happen. TV channels would flip by themselves. Toys would burst into electronic giggles and jingles in the dead of night. I shrugged it off, blaming it on faulty wiring or my own imagination. But then the shadows began to move. One night, I spotted the silhouette of a man. He wore a long coat and a fedora. Looked like something out of the 1940s detective story. I dismissed it as a trick of the light until a week later, on a clear starlit night, my husband saw it too. We later moved into an old farmhouse built in the same era, set on a vast 5 acres of land. From day one, the unsettling sensations began. Working alone in the day, I would hear creak sounds above me when I was downstairs and similar disturbances below when I was upstairs. On one occurrence right behind me, I heard a very distinctive "uh-oh." I rushed out of the house, thinking it was clearly my husband. But there he was, far out in the yard, sawing a tree. Through the years, the incidences escalated. Shadows flickered, doors creaked open and closed, soft whispers floating through the rooms. And I even heard a woman humming a haunting tune. The most unsettling part? The physical touch. The gentle tug at my pillow, my blankets. It's like something or someone wanted my attention. Now I could ignore the lost items that would reappear in the very places where they were thought to be lost. The light switches that would flicker on by themselves, even the footsteps that seemed to follow me around the house. But it became a very different story when my young grandson stayed over. We were in bed, the room dark and the curtains pulled shut. Then, a mysterious light caught my eye. I first thought it was just a passing car, until a bright white orb the size of a golf ball floated into the room. It circled us a few feet above, never casting a shadow or a reflection on the walls, and just vanished. Though things have quieted down in the recent years, creaking floorboard or a fleeting shadow still reminds me that they are around, watching, and perhaps waiting. Whatever they are, or whoever they are, they've made sure that we never forget that we're never alone in our homes, especially when we think we are.
Oh, that was a surprise. I solved it, though. I know what it is.
Oh, what is it, Nick?
Bert's mom. It was just Bert. He's sneaking around and trying to scare you. He's like wearing costumes, probably stealing cookies from the cookie jar, and you hear a little shuffling. Yeah. You just had a bad boy.
Man.
You know, that's creepy. Give me chills.
It was funny because I hit her up on Saturday.
Okay.
And we was talking about this episode because, and I told her, I'm like, I'm surprised you didn't like send anything. Like that honestly shocked me. And she goes, yeah, I don't have any good ghost stories. And I'm like,
oh, what was this? This was good.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And she goes, yeah, it would just be boring. I'm like, yeah, no, she's like, you can do whatever, I'll think about it. And if you get something by tomorrow, I said, it's got to be here by Sunday. I said, because I'm recording on Sunday, doing sound effects on Sunday. I know that's going to take a little while. And Saturday night, she sent that.
Yeah.
I rewrote obviously everything. I shortened some of the things. So anyone, if I did your story, if I shortened it, I took things out. It wasn't that it didn't have something to it. It didn't move the story the way I wanted to narratively. So don't think that I was just deleting stuff to delete stuff.
You should call your mom. Let's interview her on the phone.
Interview her on the phone?
Hey, maybe not, but do you know what did she think was going on? Did she think the cause was?
I don't know that she per se knows. Of course, it's my mom. So we've had some conversation. Believe it or not, our family doesn't really talk about some of the things that we have necessarily go on because we've had a lot of different events as a family. We've all witnessed things, but we don't generally talk a lot about it.
My dad will, but my mom won't.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like some people they don't want to talk about it. And I totally get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's like, even for me, like there's stories that my parents don't know to this day.
Mm-hmm.
My wife knows some of them, but even she doesn't know all of them.
Right.
So it's definitely, I always said I wanted to write a book about all of my experiences. And then when I go publish it then, because it's not going to matter at that point. But yeah, the Fedora Man, honestly, when I started my podcast, and I was telling her, hey, I'm going to do this thing, blah, 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 blah. She's like, are you ever going to do an episode on the Fedora Man? I'm like, the who? And that's really when she explained that story to me. So it wasn't until recently I even heard that story.
You know what I think of when I hear the Fedora Man keeps showing up places?
What?
I think back when I was a kid and that guy kept trying to sell us an Electrolux vacuum cleaner, and he would not stop showing up until we bought it.
Oh my god.
That's what
was
I
his
keep
name
thinking
in the
of.
game? The heck was his name? Shoot, he had a name in the game and I can't think of what it was. I should
What
know.
game?
I played that game. Huh?
What game?
Fallout 3. Remember
Oh.
that? He was trying to sell the vault
Yeah.
to the family. He had a fedora on too, Nick.
Yeah. They always want to sell you something.
There's always a salesman with a fedora.
I remember that guy kept showing up, and I'm convinced my parents were like, "Oh, just sell us the damn vacuum cleaner and stop coming here."
Stop coming to the house. That's funny. You know, it's funny that she talks about her grandson, which is my son.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she didn't tell another story. Disappointed. I wish she would have included it.
Oh no.
My son was sitting at the table there at her house and was talking to someone, looking the opposite direction, talking, and then waiting for a response, and then talking, and then waiting for a response.
Kids are so spooky.
Spooky, bro. It's very spooky.
Your kid's haunted, man.
I knew there's something wrong with that boy.
I mean, with all due respect, your kid is haunted.
Facts. But thanks, Mom. I appreciate you sending that to me. I know
yes, thank you so much.
I didn't have to bend her arm too much. I just said, I'm surprised you didn't send anything, but I'm glad you did. See, I told you this was good. Even Nick got the chills on that one.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, that was really good. And you're going to be famous now, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're Bert's mom of a podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
I told her, I said, do you want to be anonymous or do you want, she's like, I don't care. I'm like, how do you want me to introduce you? And she goes, I don't know. I'm like, as Bert's son? She started laughing. I'm like, well, now you're going to be Bert's mom. I don't know why you're laughing about that. she said something like, that's
you two
different.
cracked me up. You two cracked me up.
I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, she's like, well, that's different. I'm like, what do you mean that's different? I've always been your son. Unless there's something you want to tell me.
Yeah, hold on. Is there more to this story?
Yeah, Mom, is there more to this story?
Busted.
Oh, man. Were you ready for
really
the next one?
appreciate that.
This next one's another surprise, Nick. A surprise entrant.
Is it your dad?
You'll have to find out.
All right. Let me find out then.
Let's go.
The Orb of Unearthly Light from Bert. My story begins at the very time when the Nintendo was the marvel of every household, and smartphones were still the stuff of science fiction. My younger years was consumed by the insatiable curiosity of things that lurk beyond the rational world. But one night, that curiosity of skepticism and belief blurred for me forever. Now, unlike most of my nights as a teenager, I decided to call it an early night. I jumped into bed, got underneath the blankets, and grabbed a book, along with my handy-dandy flashlight. I cherished the tranquil atmosphere that our old house generously provided. Eventually, I switched off the flashlight, plunged the room into an abyss of darkness. But just as sleep was on the cusp of claiming me, something broke the stillness. A flicker of light. Now, my initial thought? It was just my dad. It wasn't unlike him to be a trickster. Maybe he was just up to his usual tricks, casting a flashlight beam to playfully disturb the household. But as I observed this anomaly more closely, it became very clear that this was no flashlight. You see, in this older house, all the doors have panes of glass above them. This light was not coming from the glass pane above my door. It was originating from the other side entirely. I watched it, transfixed, as the mysterious illumination ascended and penetrated through the glass as if it was not even there. It seemed to have a sense of purpose, though, unfazed by any surface it encountered, whether it was glass or wall. Nothing seemed to influence its trajectory. I held my breath. I observed the light complete its slow arc across my room, finally exiting through the same exact glass pane above my door, disappearing as soundlessly as it had arrived. I'll be honest, I laid in my bed for a little while, pondering what I just saw. But for me, I had to make sure it wasn't my dad just playing a trick. As I went to their room, they both seemed as though they were either asleep or near sleep. Now I know that no human hand could have orchestrated what I just witnessed. And of course, my mom made it very clear that Dad had been laying in bed the entire time. Now the years have passed since that unexplainable night, but the experience has become the cornerstone in my ongoing exploration of the paranormal. I've come across the concept of orbs, mysterious balls of light sometimes captured on film. While I usually dismissed most as dust or insects caught in the lenses, this incident remains a mystery. To this day, I ponder what unfolded that night. Was it an orb? A manifestation of energy? Or was it something altogether different? Of course, the answer eludes me, like the fleeting shadows that dance in the corners of rooms, forever pushing the boundaries of what I consider possible.
Oh, there was a pause. I thought you were going to say Bert's dad. But it was you. This is your origin story almost.
So it's not an origin per se in my life, but definitely for the podcast. We touched on a small one in the last, or wait, I don't think that podcast is out yet.
Yeah,
it won't.
Don't
be
try
out.
to guess which order it happened in. We've got to give up on doing that because it could be any.
If you've not heard a Bert origin story on the podcast, this is it. If you've heard one, this is the second story.
Pas deux.
Exactly. But this is kind of where this is. So there's been two events that has caused my brain to go, there's more to this than just this.
Right.
Now, I had to put mine and my mom's story back to back because we witnessed very similar things.
Right.
But with her orb, hers was significantly after mine. Mine was not long after my grandmother passed away.
Okay. Do you think those are connected?
I don't know. I really don't. Like, I've tried to, through the years, try to understand if there was a correlation, but
right.
It's impossible to tell. Now, the thing that I find fascinating, and this is the beauty, I can tell you, there's no question I can't answer, at least from my perspective. Right. But the one thing that I think fascinated me the most about this experience for me is it was a ball of light that's so bright.
Right.
But it didn't illuminate anything.
That is interesting.
It's very weird because like our doorways, I don't know how tall our doorways were. They were very tall doorways.
Yeah.
So it'd be an entire door and then there'd be like a segment and then there was a window, like a small plain
on
window.
Your internal doors?
Yes.
It's a fancy house.
Mm-mm.
No, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
Yeah. And I watched it go through the plane of that glass.
So from the story,
mm-hmm.
It seemed like you weren't terrified.
More confused than anything. Like I've had a lot of occasions where people, when they tell these stories, are like, "Man, I'm scared to death and I was frozen." I was more in shock and confusion. I was wide awake. Like I first started to get tired, and I remember I had my eyelids closed.
Right.
And just something from the side, I can't say that it, I don't know if I could see through my eye. Something caught my attention.
Yeah.
And I opened my eyes.
Even a minute amount of light can penetrate your eyelid, really.
But it wasn't illuminating anything, though. That's what's weird. And I don't understand how that can be a thing. That doesn't logically in my brain make sense.
Right.
But yet, for me, it happened. But I remember looking at it and I just stared at it and I'm like, what is going on? And I followed it go through the room.
Mm-hmm.
And then it like hovered around and it went right back out and through where it came from. And I remember just laying there and thinking to myself, did I just see what I thought I just saw?
Right.
Literally
how long
the
did
first
this take,
thoughts I
would
had.
you say? Like, how long was this?
Probably not nearly as long as I think it was. Like in my head, I'm like, this was like 30, 45 seconds, but it was probably 20 seconds, 15, 20 seconds. But like when people talk about orbs in photos, I don't believe 99.9% of those. It's either dust or it's an insect or it's something. I saw this with my naked eye.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You take a photo. Are you going to get the orb? Maybe. Heck if I know. The interesting thing for me was when my mom tells her story, she said it's about the size of a golf ball.
Okay.
But she also said it didn't illuminate anything.
Right.
Mine was about the size of a softball.
Okay.
And it never changed size.
Mm.
Never changed its size ever. Was that way from beginning to end. And what's amazing to me is it didn't go up and down. It literally just kind of hovered and then it would go up slightly and then it turned around and went right back out the same way.
Yeah, like an intelligence behind it, I would say.
I would assume. I mean,
and
that stuff I can't answer.
Yeah, just back on the typical orb thing. Like when people get pictures of orbs, they see them only on the camera afterwards. Like they can't tell. Like if you can't see it with your naked eye, I don't feel like there's much going on there.
No, I don't. I throw most of those out. Unfortunately, in that Reddit community, there's a lot of photos of orbs and I feel bad because they want to believe it so badly.
Oh, I know.
But almost every single time. Not only that, but I don't think they truly think this stuff through or they don't understand cameras enough, right? Like a lot of times I'll see and having a photography background, I'll see a photo that's either an underdeveloped or the wrong f-stop or the shutter speed is slow. Well, an insect flies by so quick, it just looks like a blurred orb is what it looks like. It's just an insect. It's just the speed of your camera is not fast enough. You've got too slow of a shutter speed.
Yeah, there's like pictures that got famous briefly back in the day where a camera strap was like flew across the lens and it looked like that kind of stuff happens.
Correct.
If someone saw something with their eye and then took a picture of it and it happened to be an orb, I'd be a little more open to it. But
I think if I would have had a camera there, I don't think I would have taken a photo.
No, I think maybe not, but
I think I would have been too in shock because that's the way that I am. Like thinking now, like if that happened right now, I would do the same thing. I would just stare at it.
Right.
To A, figure out, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And B, it's like such a mesmerizing thing to see.
Yeah, you don't want to take your eyes off of it to get your phone or anything. And I bet that's why we don't get a picture of a lot of things.
For sure. I hear it all the time. People's like, how is it that people can see all these ghosts and spirits or whatever, or demons, but we never have a photo of it? First off, you're seeing something you never see.
Right.
But I'm glad you said you don't ever want to take your eyes off of it because that's going to play into our next story.
Oh, okay. Is this from a family member or is this?
This is another special one, Nick.
Oh, okay. This one's
got another special one. No. This one is what I would call a life-changing occurrence.
Oh.
And I would say for me is probably the scariest story that we've got this evening.
Oh, I just got a chill already. I'm so easy to convince on some things. I am. Yeah. Can I hear it?
Are you ready?
Hear it. Yeah.
The Midnight Visitor, a childhood mystery from Bert. When I was just a small child, around 5 or 6 years old, I had an experience that would forever shape my fascination with the unexplained and the unknown. My parents had tucked me in for the night, and sleep quickly enveloped me. However, that sleep would be disrupted, setting the stage for something wholly unusual. I woke up in the middle of the night to a sound that seemed like distant whispering. While I laid there in bed, I strained to listen. The voices were indistinct, but I thought they sounded soft and familiar, very much like my mom's voice. Eager to understand what was going on, I pushed myself off of my bed. It didn't even occur to me to check to see if my parents were still in bed. Driven by curiosity, I walked out of the bedroom into the front room. I half expected to see my mom whispering to my dad, trying not to wake me. But as I turned the corner and peered into the kitchen, it wasn't my mom that I saw. Standing there was a woman who appeared to be in her 30s or 40s, with black hair pulled up into almost like a bun. She was dressed in a fashion reminiscent of an episode of Little House on the Prairie. Stunned, I couldn't run, yet I couldn't look away either. It seemed like she was whispering to an unseen presence in the kitchen. Then, she walked into the front room where I was standing. The woman paused and locked eyes with me, as if she was as startled to see me as I was to see her. She stopped talking, stopped moving, and seemed almost confused. She looked back into the kitchen and then slowly back at me, and she said,
What are you doing out of bed?
Words had completely escaped me. I couldn't respond. Instead, I retreated to the old leather chair in the room and sat down, still staring at her. Neither of us moved. It was as if we both grappled to find the right words to say. Although it felt like an eternity, I'm sure it wasn't more than just a few minutes. Just then, I heard footsteps approaching from my side. For the second time this night, I heard the question, "What are you doing out of bed?" The woman in which I locked eyes with turned to look at the person, and then I also slowly turned my head to see my mom, her face clouded with confusion, standing beside me. As I looked back to where the woman had been, she was gone, completely vanished. With a lingering sense of unease, I returned to bed, but I knew what I saw, and the moment has stayed with me ever since, forming the very foundation of curiosity about the unknown that I have today.
That was scary. Oh, yeah. Origin story number 3.
And that's, everyone asks me, what's your fascination with all this stuff? Like, where do you get that from? And I don't even know that I've told my parents this story.
Really?
To this day.
Oh, so this is a special feature. So what I'm getting from this is
Could be.
Bert's mom's haunted. Bert's haunted. Bert's son's haunted.
That's what it is, Nick, basically.
So I had a lot of thoughts
interesting
about this.
It's and I wish I had answers for a lot of it. I really do. I think that's where the vast majority of my fascination comes from is I remember it today like I did, and I couldn't have been older than 5 or 6 years old. I remember getting out of bed, and I remember thinking it was my mom.
Right.
Because it sounded very much like my mom when I was a kid. And I remember turning that corner, and it was not my mom.
Do they look similar at all, or?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
And
it was a very...
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's very fascinating when you're in your house. Now, as a kid, sometimes I think you can just go with things Right?
Right.
Like I always say, kids see things that we can't see. And the reason I know that is because I saw something that, if anything, built the foundation for who I am today.
Right. So it seems to me that the not mom was confused to see you as well a bit. Because you said she looked at you, looked at the kitchen.
We talk about different hauntings all the time.
Right.
And there's a residual hauntings where the person, they're basically on a loop.
Right.
They're doing the same actions. You see the same thing around the same time frames, doing the same things. There's not a change. And then there's what they call an intelligent haunting.
Right.
The interesting thing is, and the reason that I made sure to add that in the narration, I stood there and watched this for however long it was, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. She was having a conversation with someone else I couldn't see.
Okay.
And I remember her just walking into the front room, still talking. And then she looks at me and stops.
Right.
Dead stops. And she's looking at me and I'm looking at her. And it's almost like she's trying to figure out, can he see me too?
Right.
You know, which is weird to say out loud. And I remember she turned around, she looked back at someone, didn't say anything. Not a word went by. Turned around and looked at someone else and then turned back. And said, "What are you doing out of bed?" Like that's a question that A, means that she understands. A, I was in bed and now I'm not in bed.
Right. I had two diverging thoughts. One I find very scary, and one I find less scary. The one I find less scary is maybe like in a past life or something, you looked like or you were this woman's child. And she saw
That's creepy.
the past you, and it was more confusing for her because you were in different clothing or whatever than she'd expect. That's the less creepy version. Believe it or not, that's the least creepy version. Wow. The other version is she's aware that you are not her child. She's aware of the household. She's aware of what you normally do. And she's in your house intentionally knowing she doesn't belong there and questioning why you're awake.
Right.
If she says, "Why are you not in bed?" that means she knows your pattern. She's been there before.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's definitely as weird as this is to say, she felt familiar. Not like I knew her, but it felt like as a kid, like I say, I wasn't scared. I was intimidated because I was like, who's this stranger in my house? Now, what I'd love to do is at some point talk to my mom. I'm sure she's going to hear this podcast and be like, either A, she's going to be like, yeah, we've talked about this, or B, she's going to be like, why did you never tell me this? But as a 5 or 6 year old, like, what are you going to tell your mom? Hey, this person that's I remember thinking to myself when my mom said, "What are you doing out of bed?" Me going, I clearly can't say I was here with this thing because she's going to think I'm lying. Like that's the first thing that came into my mind. Yeah. And I remember that to this day. This moment is etched in my brain forever. Now, if I've never had this conversation with my mom, I'm curious if she'll remember the one time that I was sitting in the leather chair and she came up to me and I was out of bed. That's the only thing I'd be
I'm
super
going to need an
curious
update
about.
on this. I need to know.
I know, right? Yeah.
She's going to be like, "That's spooky. I'm putting you up for adoption." No, just kidding.
Well, and that's the first house that I lived in as a kid. That was our first house. And we moved out of there to the house that she's talking about in her story. The first house we moved into was built in like 1890 something, 1880 something.
Oh, so that could very well have someone living way back in those days. Oh,
which that is also the house that I saw the orb in.
Right.
Now, since they've moved to another house that's on 5 acres,
Okay.
and that house was built in the late 1800s also, I believe.
I've seen that house.
You have.
Yeah, your drone footage. I've seen
That's
that
right.
house.
That's right.
Did you get
Nick
creeped
is one
out
of the
for a
few
second
people
there?
Exactly.
It looked like you were creeped out.
No, I was sitting there thinking, did I show him like a picture of the property? But then I remembered I did show you that drone footage. That's funny.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of land
Nick and
there.
we was into drone footage there for a while.
Oh,
and I was like,
I'm
look at
still
this
into
drone
it.
footage I got from my parents.
Speaking of drone footage, you were definitely aware that like most of my province was on fire this past summer.
Yes.
Yeah, my brother brought his drone to my mother's house, whose house, by the way, was in the center of the fires, and it stopped at the property line. No damage.
Oh, wow.
Got really lucky, but he took the drone up, and you could just see devastation as far as the eye could see.
Well, we
Crazy.
confirmed another thing this podcast. Nick's parents are haunted. They stopped at the property line.
Well, I mean, you can't have a kid this spooky without being a little spooky yourself, I guess.
That's what it is. That is what it is. Gosh,
That's
dang
right.
it.
That's right. No,
Yeah.
I don't think my mom has ever said anything supernatural at all. Although she told me tonight when we went out for supper that she has always hated scary things. And she remembers as a teenager going to haunted houses and just like closing her eyes the whole time. So she would not be receptive to seeing things.
Yeah, she might be one of those. Again, I think it goes back to, if you're capable of manifesting or assisting in manifestation, or maybe it's energy to manifest, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think there's something with that. I've not looked at that angle before. Like I've always went Matrix, like we're in the freaking simulation Matrix world. But now the more I think about it, it's like, man, there's so many different ways you can go with that. Even like in my last story, like a lot of times I think like you do. Is this something that's been here forever?
Right.
Now, what's interesting about it is the outfit was every bit of 1800s.
Yeah.
Every bit. Like I remember. Now, what's weird is I don't remember colors. Now, maybe that's just me, and this was a long time
From
ago.
that era, there wouldn't be any in the clothing, would there?
I don't know. I've not researched a lot of 1800s clothing, so I'm not sure. I would assume you're probably right. There probably wouldn't be a lot of color.
Well, I always go to this place called New Ross Farm, where the people pretend they live there and go about their duties and stuff. And all their clothing is black and white.
Oh, which very well it could be. Like I feel like the stereotypical, like I said, it was like Little House on the Prairie, but like I remember her hair was in a bun. I remember her hair color was black.
Okay.
The house was pitch black, but I saw her differently. Like it was not, it's not like she was illuminated. I don't know how to explain it. I really don't. Like I don't
almost
understand.
Like overlaid on the world kind of thing. Like
that's probably a great way to put it. Yeah. It's almost like in post-production when I'm doing our videos,
right.
I decreased saturation. I masked it and I increased brightness slightly.
I can understand.
And I remember when my mom came in and asked me what I was doing out of bed, and I did not want to stop looking. And when I looked at my mom and then I looked back, she wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sort of relates to what we were saying earlier about you don't want to look away.
Don't want to look away. Yeah. As soon as you said that, I'm like, if only you knew I was coming up next, Nick.
I'll tell you one more thing that I think could explain why some people just don't have experiences. I'm just going to tell a part of this because I don't want this to go on forever, but I once had an experience that was so outside my realm of what I thought reality could be, that I had sort of like a moment where I blacked out. Like I just blanked that time from my head. We were going down this long road to this cemetery that's like 10 minutes off the road down a dirt path. There's only one lane. You can't pass anyone. And we were going there to go ghost hunting. And I'd never seen anything before. So there's nowhere to turn around or anything. So we left the road. We got going. And I'm like, man, it seems like this drive's taking 18, 20 minutes. It's only a 10-minute drive. And all of a sudden, we're back on the road. And I'm like, what happened? It's not possible to turn around on that road. How did I get back out here? And my friend told me, he says, you don't remember anything from the last 25 minutes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just remember driving. And he's like, we got to the cemetery. There was an old man with a lantern. I think he was a ghost. You looked straight ahead, went to the back of the cemetery, turned around and drove out, and you wouldn't talk to me until right now.
That's wild.
So if I were alone, I had an experience, but it was so out of touch with what I considered reality, my mind blocked it out. And that could happen, and no one would ever know.
That is true. You're right on that.
So that's something to consider.
That's a crazy thing. Your brain can do some crazy things when dealing with stress is how I'll put it.
To this day, I don't remember it.
That's insane.
Yeah, I can't resummon that memory. Like, even after he told me and I had no choice but to believe it, because it's literally impossible that what I experienced happened. What he said is the only solution I can think of.
Well, this is why we need one of those hypnosis people.
I know.
We're going to pull that memory out your head, Nick.
Yeah. Well, you need it too, because you got some spooky stuff going on.
There's some stuff that's going to the grave with me.
Yeah.
People
you need to find out if you were reincarnated. Maybe you were. You used to be a little Amish boy.
That'd be crazy, man. I tell you though, that moment was the first moment in my entire life that clicked for me. And it's to this day, it's just as much of a memory as anything that I did yesterday.
You have strong memories. I have lost memories.
Which is crazy because I remember everything. Literally remember everything. I remember the light coming through the door as I walked through there. I remember looking in the kitchen. The only thing I could never tell was who she was talking to. I could never see that person. But I know she was talking to someone because she wasn't even facing me when I was looking at her. She turned around and came into the front room. She's like, basically was the...
And that person
was the
devil.
Yeah. The devil in him.
She was talking to the devil.
Sprinkling some holy water in that kitchen.
It's like, you're not supposed to come down here when I'm talking to the devil.
Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed this podcast. Hopefully we did some justice to the stories. I want to thank everyone that provided us with stories. It means the world to me that you took the time out of your day.
Amazing.
That's a big deal.
Literally amazing.
And hopefully we did some justice for it.
I love this episode. I don't even care if anyone else loves it. I loved it.
Nick is an instant win on this one.
Yeah. I even the parts that I recorded, I was surprised how good they were. Not to toot my own horn. This was all Bert's doing. But no, I love this episode.
No, that's good. You should feel good about what you record, Nick. We were just talking about this the other day. Yeah. Got to feel good about it. Got to put it out in the world.
I am just sad that I have to wait to listen to this again. Like passively listen, because this is going to be amazing.
Well, this will be out, Halloween's Monday?
Oh my God, is it that quick?
I think it is. I think it's...
Well, let's see.
It's Tuesday.
Oh, it's coming up.
Yeah, so it's going to be in 8 days from the day we're recording this.
Holy moly.
Yeah, because what we're doing is we're releasing a podcast this Friday, I'm releasing my podcast on Wednesday, which is a normal podcast. One on Friday for us, and then both channels is going to drop this Halloween on Tuesday. Then
it's a Halloween spooktacular.
Halloween spooktacular. Well, everybody, hopefully y'all enjoyed this one. Do what?
Can we call it that? Sorry.
Heck yeah, we can. Absolutely, we can. We got to figure out what we're going to do for a thumbnail, though.
It's literally this.
Just I don't have any cool tattoos, Nick. I just got veins.
I just got a box full of tattoo supplies. I'll tattoo you.
Oh, snap. There we go. Yeah. Listen.
Whether you like it or not.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed this. We enjoyed it. I know Nick and I both loved it. Mm-hmm. He loved, when he sent me the stories, I could tell he's pretty excited about this episode.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. Don't forget, we got Christmas one coming up. We're going to have 2 a year, Halloween and Christmas. 54 episodes a year.
I'm not as excited for Christmas, but
that's my favorite one. I got to come up with some Christmas themed podcast.
Did you know that the tradition for Christmas in Victorian times was to tell scary stories by the fireplace?
I had no clue.
That's where we
I just got a new Audible book too. That Audible book would probably fit that. What's that book? It was a book of all the scariest stories ever told. And I got it because it's Halloween. It's called The Best Ghost Stories That's Ever Been Told by J.M. Badger. And it's 25 hours of ghost stories.
I like it.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you all for jumping in. I definitely appreciate you all. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We did some justice for you. Let us know in the comments down below. Also, do not forget, rate us wherever you're listening to us or watching us. Hit that doggone rating button. We need it. We got some scallywags trying to bring our scores down.
Oh, that's not good.
Them doggone scallywags. I think we got a hater, Nick. I'm not sure.
That's okay. That's how you know you made
our
it.
Stuff. That is legit. And thank you so much for freaking downvoting all of our stuff. That actually helps us. So we appreciate that.
Engagement.
Exactly. Thanks for the free engagement. Until we see y'all in the next video, next stream, we're out. Goodbye.
Happy Halloween.